each of the only one that's really location specific, we don't have in this area, but so there are a bunch of organizations that are national. So there's one that cafeteria's a part of. I don't know what Journey's End's like larger body is, and then USCRI is the International Institutes.
SCRI.
Yeah,
Everything's an acronym. This is another thing that I'm learning. Like with everything that's city TI training, everything's an acronym. I'm like, stop.
the Committee for Refugees and Immigrants. It's just so the parent organization just sends people to the different branches, and it's not, you don't pick them, it's not based on terms, it's just so the refugees are distributed among the agencies, and then the agencies distribute them to the parents.
Okay, well that has always been a question for me, is like how did cafeterias pick you?
And the answer is they
Kind of random or whatever, they just get a list from the
some of them, I think it may be, I'm not sure, but the charities may run certain camps in certain areas, and so then they need more, but I think it's usually just a general relief. Internationally, so the camps, and then they just communicate with the government.
And so, what you were assigned to family, a case, is that what you said?
Yeah, it's like,
And then, what was your job to do?
so you get everything ready before you arrive, and I do want to go eat this up.
Yeah.
She's the GA, I talked to her.
Secure the housing, furniture.
Jamie Kristen has had a
Culturally appropriate
facilitating
entry.
nice to meet you.
Somebody who's already living in the U.S. and they'd identify as a friend or family member. We coordinate with them to come and meet them at the airport, bring them in, and then there's a whole bunch of basic things that have to happen in the first 90 days. So we're able to culture, tattoos, all the things in their house, transportation on the community, getting their set up.
Certain
Where we set up a
aspects
house,
of,
you know what home again is?
It is like that.
Oh, it is like that, but you're doing it yourself, you're not doing it.
easing my way into everything.
Well, for the first time ever, first time ever, we have more groups that want to set up a house for joint family than we have coming.
Right, because what's happening in the government policy, it's terrible. I mean, not that there aren't many people who could take that.
Yes,
I know, I'm like,
October,
Just get them first.
and then as we have vacation meetings, we'll like have some more ideas for the rest of the months. Yeah, so we'll definitely start with
Yeah, I'll be at the meeting next Monday. Awesome. It was nice to meet you as well.
Messier than it seems.
So yeah, I thought, because
Hello. I got the feedback from the, did I forward you the feedback from Yuki?
I don't think so.
Last week, I didn't.
I saw her message, but was there feedback
There
attached?
was an Excel sheet
Oh,
with
yeah.
just a few participants' feedback, but I
Yep.
put a number more on the email to
we
her.
got more
You don't
information as we go.
remember an email from her?
I just wanted to make sure.
double check.
Revise. Yeah, we have,
I did not see, I might have just missed it. Did it look good though?
Yeah,
We got
yeah,
more
and
information,
it's
we
interesting,
understood
because some of them
things
requested like additional specific cultural knowledge, and maybe we were kind of like, oh, you're cultural humility, but I think for their group, they're probably going to need to get someone with, like a community member to come in and talk to them or something
I
like
think
that.
it even said that could be a good next step.
Yeah,
During celebration.
yeah. They're kind of like asking for specific information about the populations that they serve, and I was like, oh, that's kind of like, I think really kind of like not trying to do that specifically, but that's probably a piece that would be helpful for them just in terms of forming relationships.
ooh, that sounds lovely.
Presenting today?
She said she was on vacation and then she got back to me and said she needed to check stuff.
No, I just started Tuesday.
Till 10 o'clock, we need participants. What particular.
Nelson Valley Grade Group.
But we're not losing a certain about
It's just small amount of research about it.
I didn't realize, right,
What, for me, that's what I would do, like, in that situation, I might reach out to a colleague or someone I know, like, maybe heard anything, just like, would you be willing to be a guest speaker, or,
Oh, thank you, yeah.
right, that's a good one. Go out, this person.
No, I mean, you didn't see the ones set out?
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
The next one line,
Did you like it?
Reproductive justice is an election.
I forgot what it was called now.
But then if like take
Come to this one, man. I got a little meeting, man.
Aww.
action community change. If you guys already have a date.
No, I want to hear all about that.
Are you a cowboy or you're
I'm a cowboy.
a campesino?
I'm a cowboy.
I like it.
I'm a bracero to death. Thank you. It's a new one. It's a new hat.
That's why I
Thank
have
you.
the two online, because all the seated were full. I don't, yeah, I don't like, I don't lie, but, well, we should talk about that, we haven't talked about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, never, so,
We'll
it's
do it
different,
right
you
now,
know.
I guess the October meeting.
Okay, yeah, you just let me know when you want me to come. I think that it keeps you from having to explain things a bunch of times. So,
are you a doctor?
yes.
I'm Elizabeth, you never corresponded.
Oh, hi, how are you?
I was just saying how much I love your class.
Oh, I'm
I
glad to hear
love
that.
your class.
Thank you so much for letting me. It's true.
I did just say that.
Just saying.
Yes, we had some correspondence over the weekend, so that's good.
I was asking questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it online or Steve?
Yeah, it's online.
Oh,
The
so no
readings she's got
wonder.
are so good. Oh my gosh.
I'm glad to hear you're reading them.
Thank you.
They're much more effective when people read them. Looks so good today, doesn't it?
Oh, well, what did she?
I wonder how that workshop is.
Go to the game, I'm assuming.
Student service.
You had fun? You did?
That workshop with students about.
That's right, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Playing the Jets into summer. Did you party?
Yeah, today prep was the best help, the biggest help, so yeah, I don't wanna rely on her too much every time, but, yeah, definitely, you just pull the tables out.
Well, even with this, if it's called GTI or do you say it?
I say, I say CIT.
Even if you read it, it's hard to answer the question, like, especially the first module was all acronyms, I'm like, I had to keep going back and like, what
They're
is
very
that?
difficult tests. The quizzes are not easy.
They're not easy, but I have to go back and then reset the quiz, which is fine, but I'm like, I am reading and I'm still not remembering, so it's definitely, you have to take it, which is good.
Well, you would think after doing the updates time after.
It would be easy. Because the questions, the way they're worded are challenging, they're throwing out some red herrings and multiple choice, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what?
Now I know what you mean, that's what it's weird, but I deal with it.
See, that's why we don't do.
The college team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, next time I definitely will.
You're not notorious for the standards.
No, that's, I can't remember yours either.
So we do usually go to one game
So
a
what is
year,
your
like,
favorite?
last year my sister
I
came
am
up.
just gonna do it all but I'm hoping for next year to talk to the powers that be, I would, I wanna be at the international.
If we do an activity more than like 2 or 3 times, then they will be over that activity.
Talking about, so one of the things that we do is in your first year in a placement, it's different. But in your second year, what you want.
And that makes sense. Yeah, okay.
But certainly when you talk to them,
Nonprofit.
they say, oh, I don't think it's against you, I don't use it or whatever, but
dollars.
I didn't realize they
programs
did it
are
like
added.
that.
Being there and.
Oh, no, they don't. I also wanna talk about,
It'd be really great.
I would love to study.
Right.
I'm in a semester now, my kids are, my last kid will be in college.
Megan,
I think it's
do you have evaluation sheets that will go around?
That's such an amazing opportunity, and if you have the ability to do it, I think.
Because I wanna know about the push factors that are really see the push factors of Asian families here and why the young people succeed there. Important experience and so much research with those families to think if they're gonna come here and it's gonna be just easy. And they suffer because of that mentality. That's their reason for the amount of work that they're gonna do once they get here. Their money management is so bad. So they think they're gonna quit, so they like, or their first paychecks, they send it back to Africa because they think they're gonna.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
My social media
Their
stuff
money
with,
back.
with Kathy or?
I saw you wanna kind of show everyone. That's
awesome.
Just like the average person, they have a crisis, they lose a job or something, they can't let it.
It's good, it's a good way to network.
Haven't worked.
Well, it was nice to see in person.
So I know international,
I
they
gotta stop in.
push that program, they have like a financial awareness thing, and I think all of it, families should be taking more advantage of it. I think
Lots of people.
Do you buy four now? Just two. Supporting
Pat, do you ever talk about your social media work here? Do you ever just say a word or two? Do you want? Cause I was just telling a student
Anyone
about
who
you.
tweets, you can use, just use the, hashtag UBSSW or the @UBSSW. I'll be taking a photo and tweeting it out. Before we begin, Jamie's letting us make an announcement, so Kristen, take it away.
Hi everyone, Kristen, if you haven't met me already. I am a co-facilitator of the Macro Social Work Student Network. We're gonna meet every Monday, not every Monday, bi-weekly on Mondays. This Monday is our first meeting. It's from 5 to 5:50. So we're gonna be bringing in guest speakers, hopefully doing some professional development, so students and faculty are welcome to bring in some more macro stuff into the program.
Great.
And I'll pass
No
this
here
around to
if you want to attend the meeting today.
Do you wanna say a brief something about the macro chat that's on Twitter? I'm sorry, but I was just telling someone and they were really curious.
The school is the only university social work program that participates in a weekly hashtag macro SW Twitter chat. So macro social work, we talk about, last week, we do it during the semester, we take a break in the summer. Last week's topic was immigration, this week's topic, I think, is social action. Next week, the 19th, one of our own, MSW students will be talking about the intersections of environmental and reproductive justice. And so you don't even need a Twitter account to follow it, you just follow the hashtag during that hour, Thursday nights between 9 and 10 and PM. And it's a great way to see what's happening in other parts of the country, as obviously we're dealing with macro issues. We haven't done as much internationally as I'd like, so if anybody has ideas for hosting a chat about international social work in any event, that would be fine. Any questions, please contact me, Pat Shelley, it's PAShelley@buffalo.edu.
Thanks, Pat.
Hi everyone, welcome to our first Global to Local Luncheon. My name is Jamie. So today we have the UB School of Social Work's KB team presenting with Dr. Philomena Critelli, who is an associate professor here, the coordinator of the undergraduate studies and co-director of the Institute for Sustainable Global Engagement. Her research interests include global gender-based violence and women's activism, global migration, social policy, and human rights. Dr. Laura Lewis, who is a clinical Associate Professor, and the Dean for Global Partnerships, Director of Field Education and Co-Director of the Institute for Sustainable Global Engagement, and Dr. Kelly Patterson, who is an Associate Professor, whose research interests include community-based housing organizations, fair housing advocacy, housing patterns and poverty, spatial issues, and social service access and delivery, subsidized housing, and urban neighborhoods. All three have been working on the project and the Kellogg Foundation since 2016. So thank you guys for coming today to speak, and thanks for everyone coming to hear them.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. I know it's like the beginning of the semester, we're the first ones on the agenda, so we really appreciate you coming out and giving us a chance to talk about the work we've been doing for the last few years with the Haiti project. I'm left-handed, sorry. Okay. So, just to start off, you know, there's studies that show that U.S. people do not have a good sense of geography, so we want to locate Haiti for you. So here's a map. So it's on the island of Hispaniola in the Greater Antilles, in the Caribbean Sea, and it occupies half of the island. It shares with Dominican Republic, and this, you know, this all came about because of historical reasons and colonialism. And the name of our project is the Sustainable Village and Learning Community. And I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, the whole concept of it. I mean, I think it's a very bold, unique, and kind of grand, ambitious project. So it's a statewide collaboration involving about 10 SUNY campuses and 5 not-for-profit organizations. And the idea was to promote sustainable development in Acaye, Haiti, which is west of Port-au-Prince. And again, as I just said, it's a very unique, comprehensive model, and it harnesses the talent and expertise within the SUNY system in a multitude of disciplines, because we recognize that we're going to talk some about the needs in Haiti, but they can't be addressed by one discipline. There's just multiple needs. So Kellogg Foundation awarded SUNY an $800,000 pre-development grant, which we received a sub-award from, and we were invited to be part of the project with the social service sector. And the idea is to develop educational, economic, social programs, and other needed services. And there's a plot of 44 acres of land. It's a long story about how this came into the hands of SUNY. I won't go into it, but there's this huge plot of land that's designated for the development of this project. And they've made a 10-year commitment, the Kellogg Foundation and other foundations, to develop this project. It really has, you know, long-range implications, and with an anticipated $50 million. So again, the program concept is, you know, we know that universities do partnerships, but this is, you know, an interesting concept with an international partnership and, you know, and partnerships with NGOs and funders at the same time. So the idea is that institutions of higher education can be vehicles of social and economic development. I mean, we have a lot of expertise, talent, commitment, energy in our universities. And so we can support education and capacity building in developing nations such as Haiti. And we also, you know, from our social work perspective, I mean, the idea of learning community and why we were very interested in this, we really see that there's so many opportunities in this project for hands-on training for our students, in the form of field education, field placements, service learning, perhaps study abroad, cross-national teaching opportunities for faculty, and also research opportunities that can come. For both, you know, we want it to be reciprocal for people in Haiti and also for us. So this is just a diagram of the project. And again, it has shifted over the last 3 years. Some people have come, some people have gone, but this is pretty much it. You can see we have it's just been fascinating actually to work with all these different disciplines. I mean, did we know anything about fisheries and fishing and agriculture and cows. I mean, we went on trips to Haiti with these different disciplines and kind of talked about the various contributions and then, that would be done in concert with the needs that are identified in Haiti. So there we are down there, UB School of Social Work, on the lower right-hand side. So there's a number of universities involved. So we've been designated the social division, and our team is, the three of us. And we also have a person from SUNY New Paltz, who is the director of the Institute for Disaster Mental Health, who's been working on the project with us. And we have local partners in Haiti, and the Haitian Development Institute is kind of our primary partner. And these are the folks that have been working with us. We've been working especially closely with Elie Lafortune, who's the Associate Executive Director of HDI. So this is a picture of us with, the person on the far left is, we call him Samson. So I was like, I forgot his first name. We call him Samson. He's the head of another small NGO in Akaye called ECODA. And the three of us, Amy and Elie Lafortune, is on the right-hand corner. So, and anyone who's taken my international social work courses know that, knowing the context, understanding, why Haiti? Why are we working in Haiti? What are the needs in Haiti? What are the factors that have shaped the need for social and economic development? And we really need to understand the history of a place before we go in, just like a doctor doesn't, go in and make prescriptions without getting a good, sense of what the person needs and wants. We're doing the same thing. So I had a couple of really, slides describing this, and I was just kind of like, I fell asleep on the couch actually, and Conan O'Brien came on, and he had gone to Haiti and had this little history. I thought I was dreaming, because it was like last week. So I'm going to just play, dancing. I'm going to play this little, it's a very brief, but I think he really kind of captures it. Wait a minute. So, all right, there's a little bit of reference.
When I heard President Trump had insulted Haiti in the Oval Office,
why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here? Haiti, the president then went on to talk about how they needed to bring in more people to talk about how they needed to bring in more Norway.
When I heard President Trump had insulted Haiti in the Oval Office,
the president asked, quote, why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here, referring to African countries? And Haiti, the president then went on to talk about how they needed to bring in more people from places like Norway.
Now, I have no idea what the president has against the people of Haiti, but if the president doesn't like them, they must be lovely people. They really, it's just...
A day later, I was exchanging dollars for Haitian goud, and before I knew it, I was in Port-au-Prince receiving a warm welcome and a bottle of rum.
Now, this will last me this morning.
To understand today's Haiti, you need to know its history. This should only take a minute and 23 seconds. Before the Europeans came, Haiti was inhabited by the indigenous Taino people. Then the Spanish arrived, conquered the Tainos, plundered their gold, and brought in thousands of African slaves. Then the French did the same thing when they took over. Then, in 1804, Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines led a slave revolt, defeated the French, and the nation of Haiti was born. But France demanded reparations, and Haiti had to pay them 91 million gold francs. All the while, the poor black majority fought with the small but wealthy mulattoes, dividing Haiti, until in 1915 the U.S. invaded to impose stability, while also removing the gold from the Haitian National Bank. When the U.S. withdrew, Haiti was led by military juntas and mostly corrupt presidents, including Francois Papa-Doc Duvalier and his son Jean-Claude Baby-Doc Duvalier, who for the next 30 years siphoned hundreds of millions of dollars out of the country. And were followed by a military government, more appointed presidents, military rulers, an elected leader, more military rulers, another election, then a coup d'etat, a UN peacekeeping force, and more contested elections. Then, a devastating earthquake which killed hundreds of thousands of Haitians, followed by food shortages, an outbreak of cholera, and devastation by hurricanes. In short, the people of Haiti have been dealt the worst hand in the Western Hemisphere. But their spirit remains intact. I couldn't wait to get outside and meet these wonderful people.
So I think that gives you a real picture of, we need to ask ourselves when we, hear of a country and their current, status, how did they get there? And it's usually a very complex kind of way. So we can see there was a complex history and the cumulative effects of transnational economic and political forces, lots of failed relief efforts, years of political and social upheaval and natural disasters. And one thing that we're very mindful of as we try to approach our work in Haiti is this history, and this history of people from outside coming in and imposing and oppressing the people of Haiti. So what has been the impact? Why Haiti? Why is Haiti like it is? It's the poorest country in Latin America and the Caribbean, with a per capita income of less than $1,665 as of 2017. 60% of the people are living under the poverty line, 24% in extreme poverty. And all of this was exacerbated by the external shocks of, there were hurricanes, wasn't even mentioned in there, and also the earthquake. The majority of Haitians lack access to quality education, and even as they tried to build the schools, and the hurricane decimated them, healthcare and basic social services. The average Haitian of 25 years or more has less than 5 years of schooling. There's lots and lots of children that are out of school. They can't afford even the shoes, or to not be in the workforce, or there aren't schools near them, but that's an estimate. And the opportunities for income generation for people, jobs, employment, are very low, especially among women in rural areas. And again, with all the upheavals, we see there's weak social institutions and a lot of foreign NGOs providing basic services. So, what are some of the principles, like knowing all of this, and with our trips to Haiti so far, the principles and frameworks that guide our work? Well, the first one, a very important one, and I think anyone who takes Kelly's class or took my class in community social work, asset-based community development is one of our key frameworks. And what is that? It's really a way of working and doing assessments and planning that identifies and builds on strengths. And I think, this is a fundamental concept in social work of the strengths-based approach. And we look at trying to, find the abilities and strengths that are existing in the community rather than using a problem and deficit model. And so, as you'll see in our work, we try to actively involve community stakeholders in decisions regarding the goals of the project, and really emphasize building the capacity in Haiti and something that is going to be sustainable and last when we're no longer there. Cultural humility is a very important approach to our work as well. We are not experts on Haiti. We have to learn. We have to listen. We have to hear from, the concept of cultural humility kind of challenges the idea of competence, that a person, you never know everything about a culture. You have to constantly be learning and listening. And these are really important concepts as we try to build relationships with people in Haiti to do the work with them and build collaborative relationships. So given, a lot of the mistrust of, foreign NGOs and lots of things that have happened, we need to develop trust, have communication, mutual respect, and really have an appreciation of the cultural context. And a second very important framework and principle is a critical anti-oppressive social work lens. And this, takes into account, the history, and considers power imbalances, our privilege, and the importance of context, really trying to understand the context of Haiti. And we want to avoid neo-colonial approaches that we are going to go in and just impose uncritically the model and the way we do things here. We have to really rethink and challenge that, and be very aware of the role of oppression in the lives of Haitian people. So I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, who's going to talk about our work in the pre-development phase.
Okay, so our research process began with gathering information and data through needs asset-based assessments. So we met with people, different target populations in various places. We had heard that the social center in the communities in Haiti were the churches. So we would land on Saturday and get ready to go early Sunday morning and be at the churches, sit through a service, and then interview, have our focus groups there. Sometimes we would interview men, women, and children all at once. Sometimes we would separate them and interview them. And we found rich data from attending church services and then asking them. Our main goal is we want to find out their priorities, because the key to our approach to the research is it must be guided by the Haitian people. It can't be us coming there with our preconceived notions about Haiti and telling them what they needed. We wanted to hear their various voices. So we went to churches, we went to primary and secondary schools where we interviewed youth and interviewed administration and faculty, and talked about the needs of young people. And then we also went to the markets where we met with mostly women, because predominantly the market vendors are women. We learned through this process that women are the backbone of the community. Women are certainly were our entry into information about young people and their needs. And then some of our most fruitful meetings were with the local women leaders. We met with them in the mayor's office. These women, as we found out, were women who were more educated and literate and had different needs than what we originally thought about for women. So we gathered information from them. Then, of course, the women's self-help groups. We went to one of the poorest regions in Haiti, Anse Rouge, and we met with the women in this community who had they were a part of a microcredit self-help group, which is a different model of microcredit because it doesn't involve banks. It involves very little financial capital from the women. Most women can be a part of it if they live in the community and they will meet the criteria, which is very little. But we thought that this would be a really great model for Akaye. And so we went there, we had met with them, and this model in particular is for really the poorest women in that society, in that community. So we had gone there thinking that, and we were very excited about it, that we were going to replicate this in Akaye. But when we met with the local women's leaders, and they were, it's all relative, but they were more educated, we ran into some race and class, really some class issues, because they didn't need that, and they communicated that to us, that they actually did not need this kind of model. So, because this is an iterative process, and we went back to the women, and we learned things, we focused on the women in the mountain regions, because they're the most isolated women and the poorest women. So, unfortunately, we were going to go there and we were going to talk to the women about replicating this model there with them. We got evacuated. And that's a part of the research process. We had to leave because there was some unrest. So right that morning when we were going out to the mountains, and we had a group of us that were going to travel there, we had to leave. We had to leave. Now you might ask, why didn't you know that? Why didn't you know that that model wouldn't work in Akaye? Well, one of the issues with doing any work in Haiti is the lack of information. There's no, they don't gather data formally, and so we ourselves were learning. It was a learning process the whole time. We had to revisit things, we had to reassess, we had to be flexible the whole way. It was a learning process for us. So then we reassessed, and we thought that those type of models would be more appropriate for the women in the mountain regions. Then we met with the Salesian Sisters. They had a history of successful programming. They're an order of the Catholic Church, programming for women and children, and we thought that they were a natural fit for us with the programs that we wanted to develop. And then lastly, we met with representatives from 3 local universities to discuss possible partnerships, which Laura is going to discuss later on, but to talk about the needs of the people that we were hearing in Acai and talk about possible collaboration with the local universities. Okay. So I want to just, meeting with the local women. So these were some of the women that we met with, and we met, like I said, more than once. And one of the issues was, you know, we never had an empty room. By the end of the time that we met, the room was packed. It was always packed. They were always willing to share with us and meet with us and discuss their needs. We wanted to know what their primary needs were, what their priorities were for development, social and economic development, and what they saw as the strengths of their community. So we never at all were missing anyone who was participating in those meetings. Market vendors, this was really rich, going to the markets and talking to the women about their priorities and their economic development needs and what kinds of programming that would be beneficial to them. So we met with several women throughout the markets discussing, discussing the kinds of things and resources that they could utilize that would improve their quality of life. And then this was probably the most uplifting time we had in Anse Rouge with the women in this very, very poor, impoverished area of Haiti. And like I said, it's very relative, but they had a very successful self-help model operating there, where they had raised about how much money?
I think they said $300,000 in the region. It was
in the region, 300,000 women starting with nothing, where they would tell us stories about how they could purchase a goat, and purchasing a goat would change their lives. Just one goat would change their lives, and how they were able to send all of them were able to send their children to school, because that's one thing that I wanted to let you know, that 50% of children don't go to school. They can't attend school for various reasons, sometimes because they can't afford the uniforms, sometimes they're working with the family needs them to be working. So these women were just elated that they could now send their children to school, all of them, through this model of self-help. And then I'll let Philomena chime in. She's very passionate about this. We met with youth, and here's another thing that we had to, unfortunately, we couldn't revisit because we were pulled out of Haiti at our last meeting, but we were developing a youth and leadership advisory board with young people, and we were just getting it up. They all volunteered to sit on it, to give us insight on their needs and what would improve their life chances, and Philomena will chime in.
Laura and I have been dying to do like a photo voice project, and it just lends itself so beautifully. It's a participatory action research model where young people, you give them cameras and you give them a research question, and they document it through, visually, and then you analyze it. And we just thought this would be a really engaging way. And we went down with a big thing of cameras, and we were all set. Right, we have to try to get them back, and we got IRB approval. I mean, that took like a zillion years, and we were all poised, we were ready to start, and then we got evacuated. But I mean, I think this concept of, especially from also a human rights perspective of, youth youth participation is really very, very key to have the voices of young people directly telling us what they want and need. And we couldn't cover all the pictures, but we went to we formed also a relationship with a local high school and had a chance to meet with young people there. And weren't they they were just so inspiring. I mean, I hate to sound corny, but they were just so motivated, so, so much wanting some hope for the future and education. Like when we got there, they were standing outside. The teachers hadn't showed up because they hadn't been paid. And they were just standing for hours, waiting for the teachers to get there because they wanted to be in school. So we had a chance to really, talk to those kids too. So.
And then lastly, I think, yes, and this is a picture of the Salesian sisters. We met with them around their programming for women, which they use the local schools, and they provide programming, literacy programs, financial literacy and literacy programs for women, and children's programs, and they've been very successful throughout Haiti. So we saw them, like I said, as a natural partner for us. So our long-range plans, well, we are proposing a center for family services where we're going to provide very feasible and low-cost programming that will meet the social needs of the community. Like I said, more than 50% of the kids are out of school, so that was one of our target groups that we wanted to address. We want to provide programming for those students that were out of school. We met with, like I said, at several schools talking about the use of their space. Although we have the SVLC and it's going to be on this 44 acres, a lot of our programming we're proposing would be in schools that were already there so that everyone could have access to the programs. And then, yes, the Women's Self-Help Group and income generation programs. We heard from the women leaders that they would like financial literacy programs, but we learned from poorer groups of women that they need literacy. Okay, they need literacy. And then the women leaders wanted English. They wanted English school education to learn how to speak English, where, so we had to really think and rethink the types of programs that we would offer. Amy, our partner at New Pulse, already does trauma-informed counseling. She's done it in other areas of Haiti, and she, in fact, went to Ankai just this summer and did some training of the teachers so that they would be trauma-informed. And so she's already begun that training in the schools. And then we were thinking of a human services certificate. A human services certificate to prepare the people in Ankai to actually work at the campus, to be intake specialists, to be the people who are on the front lines right at the campus. And then one thing we heard a lot about, counseling, career counseling, vocational counseling. Their kids need counseling. Once they finish school, what are they to do? They don't know where there's opportunities and things like that. So we're going to develop career counseling and train people to be able to offer that to young people. And then Laura's going to talk about training the social workers.
So you've heard a little bit about some of our long-range vision, and I'm going to tell you about the work that we're doing currently. We're working with a school of social work, helping to build their capacity. It's the Faculté de Travail Social et Justice Sociale, or School of Social Work and Social Justice, referred to as FTSJS. So we were really happy to discover this School of Social Work in operation in Akaya, the only one of its kind. And we uncovered it and found it actually by doing the needs assessment that Philomena described to you. It wasn't that easy to find them. For us, it was a little bit of a dream come true that we would find a program that we could partner with. Founded in 2011 by two, Founded in 2011 by two U.S. social work professors. It was actually in danger of having its doors shuttered because they hadn't been able to gain accreditation yet. And I think that this is an example where people coming in from the US maybe have good intentions, but because they didn't understand how systems work there, they weren't actually successful. They applied for accreditation in the ways that you're supposed to. They were even given verbal approval that they had achieved accreditation, but in the end, they could not get their hands on the paperwork they needed to issue accredited degrees. So this is actually the leadership team currently. I haven't worked with this gentleman recently, have you guys? But this is Francione. Ficadu Vildez is the academic director. And then this is our partner at New Paltz and our partner in Maine, a psychologist who's been really instrumental in helping the school to reopen and stay open. So, we had seen firsthand the many challenges that exist in Haiti. So chronic issues, inadequate care for the disabled, urban violence, poor provision of public health services, and acute needs, such as those arising in the wake of the earthquake. At the same time, there hasn't been a supply of well-trained professionals to respond to these concerns. So you can see on the slide, the field of social work has been very limited in Haiti, and there isn't a profession yet that has gained recognition. There are very few professional organizations or even avenues for social work careers. And issues, as Philomena mentioned, have been primarily addressed by foreigners working with NGOs in the country. And while their training and skill might be very good, they're not adequately familiar with the culture, and they're usually only there short term. So those are all issues. So fortunately, this was a success story. The school went from being on the brink of shutting down to now being able to issue accredited diplomas to students. So we've been working with new leadership at the school. Last summer, we devised an undergraduate social work curriculum with standards that are comparable to U.S. programs. And then the school was able to partner with a major Haitian university, Episcopal University, or UNEPH, and are now able to issue accredited degrees. So with teaching assistance from faculty from abroad, like ourselves and a number of others, the school is now issuing diplomas, and 20 students are about to graduate, actually. So the curriculum it's a success story, really. They have a high-quality undergraduate social work program with an approach that we're developing that is really relevant to the Haitian culture. So since that time, this is the work since that time, we've been able to do a number of things. Kelly has gone in and she's taught a course on community social work. Philomena and I have done modules on social policy and advocacy and human rights advocacy. But there are still a lot of challenges. So the current model has instructors, like I said, mostly coming from abroad. But we envision the next step of developing capacity on the ground for Haitians to actually be doing the teachers. So having teachers come from abroad can be beneficial, but the curriculum has to be carefully crafted in order to respond to the local context, obviously. And because of the limited capacity of the Haitian government and weak national institutions, NGOs have really risen to play a prominent role, really to the point where it's almost quasi-privatized state. It's kind of a catch-22. NGOs are able to come in and provide aid, but at the same time, the government really isn't, there's no incentive for the government to develop its own services. And sometimes NGOs can come in at the very extreme end of the continuum and actually do harm in a country. So I don't know if everyone is aware of the Oxfam sexual abuse scandal that came up last year. And the United Nations actually has been criticized for its role in causing cholera. 3,000 people died back in 2010. So there's really a need for young Haitians to gain the skills that they need to take on leadership positions in their own government. We really see the benefit of the school because we want Haitians to be able to identify what their own priorities are in terms of social problems. We want them to be able to develop their own NGOs or go to work for NGOs. And then for teachers currently, those of us who are teaching really have the challenge of developing culturally relevant coursework and taking into account local conditions. So our vision going forward is to really develop a path to the MSW and human service certificate programs like Kelly mentioned. So we're hoping to create scholarship opportunities for talented students to be able to come to UB to study and get their MSWs. And with the results of our community needs assessment, we want to help develop certificate programs that can build capacity in the community, but also provide a source of income to FTS-JS. So how can you get involved? There is great need for money for the school. I didn't mention it, but practically speaking, the technology for teaching at a distance is very poor. So we develop content and we work through a lot of internet disruption, but it would be great if the school could purchase a solar cell for about $1,000, and that would make all the difference for them. There's also a need for fundraising around tuition. They've been able to create a model of very affordable tuition for students, but even still, many students cannot afford it in Haiti. It's a problem in Haiti of education not being accessible to people who don't have a lot of money. So we want to make sure that this school remains affordable for people. And then, of course, the library. They need many resources that they can't access there. So we're planning a fundraiser, and we hope people will be interested in becoming involved. We think there's a role for everyone to assist. So you can see the date here, November 20th, and more details will follow. I don't know if you want to add anything about the...
Kelly
was gonna talk some about some of the real barriers, right?
Well, I did. I wanted to talk about some of the practical challenges because we learned a lot. We learned a lot by teaching there. We learned a lot by actually teaching there, so we wanted to develop culturally relevant content, and we had to rethink our approach. There's no doubt about that because we had to make the material relevant. So I was teaching a class there, and what happened was, for instance, I had planned a hybrid class because we were there in Haiti, and I was going to be there with the students on the ground. Well, we got evacuated, and then we couldn't go back for 4 months. So then the class had to be online. However, after that, because there was such unrest there, the roads were closed. So the students who were going to come to the school couldn't come to the school to access the internet. So I couldn't even deliver the class online because many of the students don't have access to the internet individually, so they had to be there. Once we were there, as Laura was pointing out, the internet technology was intermittent. I mean, it was, no class. I had classes that started at 9. They never started at 9. Maybe we would get it up and running by 9:45. So we just had to keep adjusting based on what they were actually facing. In a class of 7 students, not only did I have a critical illness that kept a student away from the class the entire semester, but a death in the family, and because they couldn't have access to healthcare, and so we just had to learn as we were going. So our plans have to be flexible. They have to be flexible. Community social work here, I have students, and Mel will find this out, going to community meetings, interacting with local community-based organizations. That doesn't happen there because of the disorganization of the communities, and because most of the time the community organizations are not operating, so they can't, there's no formal meetings that they can attend to. So I had to focus mostly on theory and thinking about what theories to discuss with the students. I chose the community readiness model because that's a model that is transferable regardless of the type of community you're in. So there were so many different issues that we had to deal with the entire time that we were there, that we're constantly rethinking. We're having to redo our curriculum and the focus because of their environment and because of the situations they face. So I just wanted to tell you some of the practical challenges that we faced on the ground there.
I could also say, like, trying to teach policy there, I mean, it was a learning experience too, that just really did illustrate a lot of the things that we talked about. Like, number one, policies are not very transparent. You go to a government website, it may barely be functional, and there's not research. All the research reports and things, all the materials that I ended up using were from NGOs. It was just hard to find, like, statistics, data, even to know what the policies are. And so for, the way I would approach teaching policy here, and how do you advocate for change, and what do you do, I'm thinking much more carefully, like, number one, how would it work there? Number two, am I gonna, like, would speaking out or something cause some harm to somebody, being careful about that. What are the avenues, that can be used? And so it was, it just really had to be really, I'm just giving you a little, nutshell of it, just, rethought, just digging up and trying to find out what the policies actually are. People don't sometimes even know them, and then I mentioned one that was kind of published, and they're like, oh yeah, they don't implement that. There's a lot of sort of despair around, the idea of what a policy actually means. So
I'm a little just confused on the timeline, so like, first of all, I think what you're doing is amazing, but, so when did you start going to Haiti, and you were there for long enough to teach a class for a long period? I'm confused, because I thought at first you were a short-term visit, but it sounds like you were there for a month.
We've really continued the work from a distance because of unrest. We were unable to travel for a period of time.
But the model in the school was, they do have people coming from abroad to teach, and you could do like a weekend intensive. And so we had planned to do, we had planned to do these intensives when we were there, and then we had to leave. So that got reorganized to being done online. So
And how many times have you been there?
Like four or five. Yeah.
But we were, and to answer your question, we've been involved in this for about 2.5 years. Laura, you might have been involved, I would say 3 years for you.
Maybe a little bit longer,
Right.
3 years. So some of what Kelly was presenting is our long-term vision. And, there have been so many barriers, we don't think we're gonna be able to implement some of those things right away. What we have been able to do, and even this is really outside of the SUNY grant, is volunteer a lot of our time to help write that curriculum for the new School of Social Work, and to be able to teach coursework. But we see over time that the school will play such a critical role in that larger SUNY project. They may do some of the programs that we talked about here, maybe with some supervision or mentorship. So some parts of the larger SUNY project are on hold, and we're sort of, players in this very large system. It sort of opened us up to not being able to do things in the order that we would want to do them.
I mean, remember last March, we were all poised, save the date, there's gonna be a groundbreaking. We're saving the date.
Never happened.
And then it came and went, and no groundbreaking. I mean, it's massive, this whole,
But rather than wait for SUNY, we went ahead and did this work that we thought we could really make a contribution to. And then more recently, SUNY has said, oh, this is perfect. We wanna get an MOU with Episcopal. We wanna have you make more explicitly the ties, from what you're doing to the SUNY SVLC project, so now there's a possibility of funding again. For the most part, it's been really just the three of us. Initially, we thought we'd be moving forward more quickly and inviting other faculty to get involved. That is a vision eventually, but if other faculty were involved with us until now, you'd be ready to kill us probably.
Right, cause it's all volunteer teaching, like, for everybody, it's
Yeah.
volunteer, yeah.
So writing the curriculum, for example, was 2 weekends last summer of being on the phone with other people and looking up programs across the US and borrowing descriptions of courses. I didn't have any experience in doing that, and then I left out the part of then going to Episcopal, and they wanted to make sure that there was some additional rigor. So Episcopal actually said, you know, we need a final capstone project, we need more intensive English. So the result of it was a very good quality program. And I also left out the part that while they were waiting for accreditation, there were 20, 30 very concerned students. You know, so it could have been tempting for us just to not be involved at all, because there was this very tumultuous period of time where the school was in crisis. And, you know, we were helping where we could, and fortunately, it ended up being a success story, and we have a lot to build on now, but it is a confusing timeline, and I was telling Kelly, you know, just before we presented, it could look like a path of, you know, A, B, C, and we ended up here, but really, there's been ambiguity all along the way in trying to make sense of things, and, you know, a lot of commitment just to talking with each other and expanding our network of people that are involved, and then you can all see where we end up a year from now or 2 years from now.
Laura and I we're on the advisory board of the school, and we kind of just saw this as a really great fit with, you know, our mission here at UB and the opportunity to try to really bolster and expand, you know, build social work capacity in our, you know, it's right in our hemisphere, it's our neighbor. And, you know, and there's a huge Haitian community here in the US, et cetera, but, you know, it's just, that's really what we're hoping to be able to do.
You know, and one thing that maybe isn't as evident here is the pool of talent in Haiti too. One of our focus groups was with the school, the students, and we learned a great deal from them and the leadership that's there now. We would love to bring them all here to get the MSW, not because they needed to practice, but because they can then go back and teach, because they're very, very talented.
Well, you know, one of the benefits of our programming is that it does not have to be on the campus. You see, there's great barriers to actually building there. They've been going to build for 3 years and no ground has broken. But our programs can be offered off-site, and that was one of the things about developing our programs. We are looking to have our programs at the local schools, and they see that now, recognize that that's a benefit, because we can actually get things started before the large program, or the large building actually happens. We can be off-site right in the community and accessible to all the residents of the community, and they now see that as a benefit. So do you have any questions?
Yeah, I sure do. First of all, I'm interested in the three of you personally. This had to be challenging for you, right? And ups and downs and, you know, frustrations and whatever. So could you talk about that a little bit? I mean, and also, do you get support from that larger circle, that one you saw that had like 20 projects and institutions for this Kellogg SUNY project?
I mean, in a nutshell, Kelly and I are waiting to hear if we're going to Haiti on Sunday or not.
On Sunday, we still don't know.
Yeah, and we still don't know.
That's the
Yeah,
kind of
I
thing.
blocked, that's why I had to change the meeting.
To get something confirmed, to get
Okay.
things confirmed, meetings confirmed, which they have important meetings that they want to schedule with the Department of Education, the Ministry of Education. We're supposed to be meeting with them, but it's up in there. That's the way, that's the way things work there, so we're on hold. We're on hold. We should be in Haiti next week right now. but we still don't know, so it's that kind of thing. Where we stay, I mean, because it has the security that SUNY requires, we stay at a resort, an all-inclusive resort. So, my husband's like, what do you mean you're staying at an all-inclusive resort? Well, you have to, because that has the level of security that's required. And then going out into the community, and we've got these bracelets on, I mean, that's an issue, okay? That's an issue. So, driving or being driven around, and now when we go, we have to, because of the unrest, we have to have a security company take us around. So that's, some of the issues. Of course, we as social workers don't want to enter somebody's environment with security guards and hotel bracelets. But these are the kind of issues that we have to deal with.
Unless we could work outside of SUNY, right? Because we have partners who are going and visiting, and they're not doing any of that. They have their own they're using their own drivers. They're not tied to the resort, for example. And we've, over time, sort of drifted a little bit in how we make our own plans and where we're staying.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we'd love to get other funding to do exactly what we wanna do and not be tied to this rigid timeline that SUNY has.
We are kind of forging some, relationships with some of the other schools, like, I mentioned, because there's been a lot of shifting over time, so now one of our partners is University of Albany. I can't even remember the name of the, what is it, CDI? And so
CID.
CID.
Center for
I think,
Development.
I think the main struggle has been just, it's so massive, the communication isn't really great between all the different partners, and just finding out what's going on, and then sometimes we imagine that some sectors are getting, social workers being, sort of isolated or whatever, like the maritime school in New York got involved, and they had this grandiose plan to build a port there, and that was the bells and whistles that everybody was really excited about, and here we are, at our big conference presenting, let's not forget the vulnerable people who don't have the literacy, who don't have to be working in this kind of higher tech kind of, thing they're gonna be building there. So, there's beauty in the multidisciplinary approach, but then it's also sometimes, like, we will cost money, having the kind of programs that we want. And of course, there needs to be a balance of income generating programs like this maritime program, like, and the fisheries, and they're gonna be building some, income generating things and there's so much, everything is depleted there. It's just it's really so painful. Like the fish, we went to the market, they're selling these little crabs, they're not developed enough. It's overfished because people are kind of desperate. The farming techniques, remember we met with the farmers and all, we really are like broadening our vistas. I know nothing about farming, and we learned all about, what's going on there, and, growing plantains and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of lost my train there, but it's very rich, but it's also difficult to keep the communication together.
I just wanted to ask, in the initial idea of long-term programs that you laid out, I didn't see anything explicitly focused on health, and I didn't know if that was, that didn't come up in the needs assessment, or that's not your area, or.
But the health sector is represented by SUNY Stony Brook, Nassau Community College, and Upstate Medical. So they have a separate, sector. However, just recently, we have been, in discussions with representatives from Upstate, doctors from Upstate to work collaboratively, because of course, social workers should be working with public health.
And you can't have a job if you're not healthy enough to work the job, and you can't go to school, so, yeah, that's what I was.
So health was always the number one issue, that people, health and education were the number one issues, no matter what group we were talking to, children, or youth, or adults and women.
But they
healthcare and education. Any other questions?
I have a lot of questions, but I'm not even gonna go there right now, because I know we're short on time, and what I really wanna say is thank you so much for being the voice of the social work profession, for staying with this project when SUNY is here, there, and everywhere, and not really meeting people's needs, for staying with this project when there's no infrastructure there, you're not giving up, for being aware of the context that so many NGOs come in and disappear. And it would be very easy for people to, you know, think, oh, well, you know, the School of Social Work in Buffalo, they're just gonna be here and they got evacuated, they're out of here. And I'm sure you're gonna get some flack for that.
Yes.
But I see you holding fast and really sticking with this in spite of the difficulties from all angles. And I am so thankful. I mean, this is what we as a School of Social Work should be doing. And I'm so glad that you're representing us doing that. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It helps to hear that, it really does, it really does.
Interest and encouragement, and we hope it evolves to a point where we can involve our colleagues and our students too. That's really our goal. We'll get there, I'm sure we will. We're not giving up.
Develop a
I
hashtag.
forgot to say.
I'm there with
Yeah,
you.
do you need a sign-in sheet, or you have one?
Because,
you know, we also are, you know, one of our goals is to really help support that school and, you know, do the fundraiser. And any volunteers, people who would like to volunteer on that event would be very welcome, so.
So that might be a separate sign-in. If there's volunteers, maybe you can send it
Yeah, I have
around, people can put their name
Yeah,
down.
I don't wanna pressure anybody, but at the same time, if you're here and you're interested,
It's okay,
we
send
want
it
you,
around.
yeah.
Can you tell a little bit on November 20th?
Yes,
What
so
is-
we're having, it's a screening of the film Bending the Arc, which is about, partners in help in Haiti, and it's just a really wonderful film. We did screen it a couple of years ago with really packed house. And it's gonna be, you know, a meal, so there'll be the presentation and a meal, and we reserved that very nice room in Hayes Hall, for, you know, for the event, so, the school, I mean, their goal for this year, just to kind of keep going, is for, you know, $40,000, and, I mean, they make do with so little money, so, you know, whatever we can earn, you know, on this fundraiser will really make a difference for supplies, library books, you know, a start with some of the technology, so we really hope we can get a good turnout for this event.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
So please fill out the feedback forms. And also, next week, there's a meeting of the Global Interest Group, so if you're interested in helping to plan things like this, please join us for that.
No, I should, but there's something else.
What is the solar cell?
Yep.
I don't know, I had to Google it, but it's just something you can install. And so, yeah.
So my current thing, please.
No, I didn't mess it up, did I? I was trying to be
So,
helpful.
one of the things that, so, yeah,